This is recording no less to the cloud up there.
All right.
Thanks to IU and Zoom and ServiceNow. As I said last week, an IU alum who built ServiceNow in the cloud. So happy to see everyone here today to chat with us on week 2 on micro-credentials, as well as the week's topic, the psychology of online learning. So we have I have to let Millie in from China as well. Okay, so we got people from China and people from Japan so far, and people from the United States. And Tom normally is in Colombia, South America, where he moved to. And go visit him because he has a place overlooking the ocean. I'm sure he'd love visitors.
Caribbean Sea. Caribbean
Sea. Yes, sure.
Yeah.
minor detail like that. So, this week we'll be talking a bit about micro-credentials again, but Tom has brought up other things like how much is a credit hour worth, right? And the personalization of one's learning and customization of one's learning. We'll get into all that. But first, I'll introduce our guest for the first hour. We have a second hour guest who is coming to us from Trinidad and Tobago, from the University of West Indies, where she works. So Paula Marchell, who just finished her dissertation a year ago. Tom Reynolds and I finished our dissertations a little bit longer ago. And I have a rare book here at my side. And you know what this rare book is, Tom? This is your dissertation, buddy.
There we go.
This is one of only 2 copies that exist in the world, probably. Well, 3. One that's Dissertation Abstracts International, one that Tom has, and one that I have. And the title of this dissertation is The Effects of the Generative and Evaluative Procedural Facilitation on College Writers Reprocessing.
College Writers Revising.
So, generating text. Isn't this something like AI is doing today? I think we are like 3 decades and a half before our time talking about how people can foster ideas with generative text. Anyhow, this is what we should do with your dissertation. We just throw it back there.
Well, we didn't have the tools, Kurt. We didn't have the tools back then.
Yeah, we have the tools to bring it back. So my personal copy, I don't think you have a copy of this one, The Effects of Generative and Evaluative Computerized Prompting Strategies on the Development of Children's Writing Awareness and Performance. Done in the Milwaukee suburbs out there in the northwest side of Milwaukee. I had to travel 80, 90 miles each way to get to the school district we had this in snowstorms, in whiteouts, in the winter of 1988, 89, long time ago.
Now, I, on the other hand, did my research at University of Wisconsin English classes where I just had to walk across campus.
Yeah. Quit bragging. So Tom he got into using macro commands in WordPerfect, and he built a set of keyboard macros to foster creativity and critical thinking, persuasion, argumentation, looking at bias, relevance, meaningfulness, as well as originality, flexibility, fluency, generative, creative skills. We were trying to foster creativity and critical thinking in writing. And then he designed a keystroke mapping system in WordPerfect, that let us replay kids' papers or student papers over time and watch the revisionary tactics that unfolded. We could look at whether they were writing like Beethovenians and tinkering with everything, or Mozartians and writing everything down all at once. There were other things I could go on and on about that, but that was the premise.
Yeah, but the central distinction is that the Mozartians, like Mozart, could compose in their head and do all the revisions and the work up to the entering the text in their heads. The Beethovians, like Beethoven, he would have all of this extant stuff around him while he's composing, and they needed all of that he needed all of that extant stuff, and the writers needed all of their extant stuff. So we named them Beethovians and Mozartians.
So what am I? Some people are combiners. I'm a Beethovenian. I'm born on Beethoven's birthday, so you know.
Yeah. If anybody's ever been in your office, they know you're a Beethoven.
Yeah. So just here, this desk has all sorts of papers all around. But Tom is a professor of teacher education at Samford College of Education at National University, which is headquartered in La Jolla, California, where he used to live, teaching online courses. He was the chair of curriculum and instruction when they put the entire teacher ed program online, one of the first universities to do that over 20 years ago. He almost burned out. He almost died. I didn't get to talk to him for a year because he was putting every course on for one of the largest teacher ed programs in the country, maybe 1,000 or more than 1,000, isn't it, Tom?
No, no, no. It's the largest teacher education program in California. It has roughly at any time 6,000 or so
Okay.
teacher education credential candidates. And that's just the teacher education. There's also special education. There's also, so the College of Education is roughly over 1/4 of the university.
Yeah, it's big. So he was put in
It's
charge of
big.
putting the whole thing
Now,
online.
Now, this is the same class that Mark Milliron guested in, isn't it?
This class? No.
No. Oh, okay. We'll
Yeah,
leave that to another
yeah,
time
yeah.
then.
Yeah, another time. So Fulbright's in Peru, Fulbright's in Colombia. He's also edited 3 books with me that are sitting by my side. Actually, 4 books. There was a one we did in 1998 called A Special Issue, Special Passage Through E-Learning in Asia, which Yoi has a chapter in. We ran a conference for e-learn in Vegas, and it went so well. We had all these people from Asia, so we decided to do a book. He's done a MOOCs and Open Education book with me, where a special issue of a journal became a print-on-demand book. MOOCs and Open Education around the world. We have 28 or so chapters in this book from all around the world, and a follow-up 5 years later, this is 2015, 2020, MOOCs and Open Education in the Global South, Challenges, Successes, and Opportunities. Tom typically writes the closing chapters. I write the openings, and then we get people to edit, to write chapters, and we edit them, and they go in the book. Another book that I brought with me, the final one, is Electronic Collaborators, Learner-Centered Technologies for Literacy, Apprenticeship, and Discourse, which has a picture of the School of Ed on the cover and has people holding up the IU flag at the North Pole, because explorers did hold up the IU flag at the North Pole. Kids interacted with the explorers about what they're doing every day as they marched across the tundra in Canada to the north. You no longer can do this because the ice doesn't exist anymore. But anyways, this book is all asynchronous collaborative writing, all IU based. And Tom and our work 10 years before that led to this book. This is a book, again, that came out with Lawrence Earlbaum. Actually, my son is on the daughter. They're just great. Anyhow, we were writing researchers at the time. And I was very into asynchronous writing and collaborative writing. So was Tom. And we did a lot of papers related to collaborative writing tools that are out there. We were experimenting with collaborative writing tools and all this well before Google Documents. There were better tools before.
Well, and in all fairness, Kurt, well before the internet. which when you think about collaborative writing, it's kind of a juxtaposition of
Whoa. We were not before the internet, because that was developed at UCLA in 1967, 68, 69. We were before the web.
Before the web. Yeah. Okay. Before the web.
Well, Tom's done many things, including he's looking at the review process for the curriculum. He has to get involved in that, the curriculum, review. He's been involved in, as I said, curriculum redesigns for personalized, customized learning, moving from structured curriculum designs to customized curriculum designs, and now micro-credentialing. Tom was born in Wisconsin like I was, and has migrated elsewhere since then, but we both love heading back there from time. Now he's living there right now with his daughter for a few weeks anyhow. Tom, would you like to fill in the gaps for your career path a little bit and what you're currently working on? Then we'll get to some questions about micro-credentials and all that. So.
Okay, well, you kind of have to understand the national university model. And the national university model, it has a lot of students, has 40,000 students. It has another 40,000 kind of micro-credential or credential or badging students. And so it's involved in both of the pathways, both of the endeavors, as far as more traditional credentialing processes, more traditional education process, degreeing processes, and also fairly heavily into the credentialing that without degrees. And so this has been a long-standing interest as far as the participation, especially in the College of Education, where you have a lot of credential students that don't end up getting degrees. And so you have a lot of these credential students, they come in and they get their teaching credential and they go out into the field. And so the basis of the understanding of national is that you have the traditional university. In some ways, it's like a brick and mortar university. And where we're going to talk about structured curriculum, a lot of it is driven by the notion of a structured curriculum. And what I mean by structured curriculum is just the normal pathway to accreditation. And I don't know how much you've talked about accreditation, but when institutions of higher education offer degrees, those degrees have got to be accredited. And the traditional model of accreditation is that, and what does accreditation mean? It means that the accrediting institution, the accrediting agency, and for us on the West Coast, it's the Western Association of Schools and Colleges. And you know what it is in the Midwest or the
North Central.
Midwest? North Central. And they all have essentially the same playbook. But if you want to, and I don't know as far as your audience, what they're going to work in or how they're going to approach this, but this is one of the big distinctions in terms of micro-credentials or whatever you're dealing with, stackable, upskilling, stackable credentials, those sorts of things. There's the notion of continuing education units that don't lead to a credential, that don't lead to any sort of university credits. Right? That's kind of one traditional model. What I'm going to be talking about is structured curriculum and customizable curriculum within the context of what leads to credentials and degrees and badging that in terms of university credits. Okay? Does that everybody have that distinction straight? As far as, and so what does it mean when you design a structured curriculum and it's accredited? It means that at the end of those, whatever those learning experiences are, then you will know and be able to do what the outcomes that are stated in the accreditation package indicate. And the traditional model of this is that faculty design a series of lockstep and learning experiences. And so the learning experiences can't be customized. They only to the extent of you can have emphases, you can have specializations, but for the most part, you have to take a core and are restricted in terms of electives. Now, what's come onto the scene is degree qualification profiles, which means that some faculty members or curriculum committee or somebody sits down and they chart new pathways through existing courses such that you don't have to take this emphasis or this specialization or exactly this sequence of courses to get this degree. And so a lot of institutions are saying, okay, well, for our customization or for our envisioning of this is we can have differing degree qualification profiles. And so the Lumina Foundation has done quite a bit of work on this. And if you Google this, you'll find degree qualification profiles. And there's different institutions that approach this differentially. But for the most part, it's still this structured curriculum. The unit of analysis is the course, and the basic structure is the required sequence of courses through which you will attain a degree. And so the degree qualification profiles are one of the first step towards customization. And so now National University doesn't use degree qualification profiles. They have a lot of what is considered just traditional curriculum, structured curriculum. And it has just as this, Kurt, can you put up the first slide? That
Oh,
really,
I'll download them here and I'll put it up. Tom, I was just going to mention Lumina Foundation is in Indianapolis, and they are spending tons of money right now for personalization of learning, as well as trying to help the 40 million adult learners who didn't finish their
yes,
college degree. This is a little
yes,
side. I'll
40
get this
million,
slide.
40 million. And you don't
40
think
million.
National University's after those 40 million students? But yeah,
Yeah.
so Lumina's done some good, very good work on this starting, 15 years ago that they were into degree qualification profiles. So they've been at it a long time. But anyway, it's still within the context of a structured curriculum. Okay. Also, that's right, they're not seeing these slides, so I'll go ahead and
Yeah,
so when
I'm gonna try and download them here. So give me a second. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Well, and so when you think about National University, most of what you're going to encounter is a very structured approach to curriculum. And it's done by full-time faculty members that oversee and this typical structures of curriculum committees, and they do program design and program uh, uh, analyses and evaluation and accreditation. And so when the accrediting agencies change the standards in some ways, then you have these curriculum revisions, and you go through and but it's still that same sort of, you can take these courses, you can, see, yeah. Why don't you go to the second slide? Sorry, guys. I mean, there you go.
I'll send them to everyone after class.
Yeah, there's just two slides, but
Yeah.
just to kind of understand the context and understand the framework from if you work as an instructional designer, or if you work in some sort of learning science specialist, and that you're going to get involved in curriculum writing, it's good to have that understanding in terms of how curriculum come about and what are the regulations and what are the processes that you had to go through before you can offer a curriculum for a degree or a program or a credential, or any of those sorts, or a micro credential, or even to some extent a badge. That's that half of the kind of the perspective on curriculum development. The other half is anybody can offer a micro credential or a badge, and you have lots of agencies doing it but not being certified. And so, but I think that's an important distinction to keep in mind. If your students are going to work in universities, they're going to work with structured curriculum and accreditation, and it's just it's a necessary evil, and I don't see that with all of the innovation. I don't see that going away in this present iteration. Okay, so why don't we stop and see if anybody has any questions as far as just that context.
But before they ask a question, I have an obvious question that some of them might be too shy to ask. Does National University hire students like mine who get their EDD degree as adjuncts? Or you got 40,000 students? Do you have job openings posted and listed?
Oh yeah. Actually, I didn't finish the sentence about National University. National University has precious few full-time faculty, and they have instructional faculty, part-time faculty that does the preponderance of the teaching. And so when you said fill in the gap as some of my participation as a full-time faculty, I have done a lot of curriculum design. I have done a lot of authorship and design of evaluation programs, of looking at kind of the future of where some of this stuff is going. And I designed the first customized curriculum program at National University.
And your courses are 1 month, 2 month long, 4 week, and 8 week. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. But it's the same. So it's the same contact hours because there again, you look at the accreditation agencies, that doesn't change. You have to have the same contact hours and the same expectations for study outside of the contact. And so it's kind of like for a 3 credit hour course, you would have 40 hours or 45 hours of contact if it's an undergraduate course, 40 hours of contact if it's a graduate course. And for every 1 hour of graduate contact, you'd have 3 hours of expected studying. And so it comes out to 120, 160 hours.
You probably have
Of,
hundreds of faculty teaching part-time for you.
yeah, oh, thousands. Yeah,
Thousands. Okay. So it
yeah,
would not
yeah.
be unusual for one of my EDD students to after he or she graduates to teach for national on the side as an just to get teaching experience and stuff
Yes,
like that.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And it's
Okay.
and in that regard, it's very good because it's a practitioner institution. And so they have a lot of built-in support mechanisms for it's I think of it as kind of an induction for the induction into teaching of whatever your area of expertise is. Because a
Mhm.
lot of graduate students come out with a lot of knowledge that isn't applied because they haven't had the practical application of actually standing up or getting in front of a classroom and teaching it. So National is very good at that. The other thing that National does that's also very good is they have learning design positions. And so if the subject matter expert comes into the or of a new program design, maybe their expertise isn't in online instruction, isn't in online design. And so the subject matter expert works with they call them Lexes, but learning experience or design learning experience people to design the online course that the um, part-time faculty will eventually teach.
And so
And so
this is a
there's
course
both.
on learning environment design. So this is perfect. And so we
Yeah,
will have
that's
both.
perfect.
I think so those are full-time jobs as opposed to
Yeah,
part-time.
those are full-time jobs because you have to remember is that 40,000 students, that's a lot of courses, and the courses need to be continually upgraded. And so at the very minimum, they go through like quality matters, those sorts of things. And of course, then they chunking and all of the sorts of learning psychology stuff that you would parse a course for. And those learning design experts help the subject matter experts to design those courses and put them on. In our case, we're just switching back next month. We'll switch to D2L Navigate, which is Brightspace. But it's the upgraded version of Brightspace. And so yeah.
We'll
And
talk about
so,
Brightspace after this. I got a little story that if someone is at a university that adapted Brightspace and expecting all faculty to use it, and that person is not using it, in trouble. Person you know. We gotta go to Maria, but before we go to Maria, real quick, after we're done with student questions, you might want to talk about the special like 10, 20, 30 million dollars that you got to personalize learning for students at National. That might be the next slide.
yeah.
So Maria, go ahead.
Yes, so I'm in K-12 education, and so with how with the shortage of educators, so shortage of teachers, that's kind of nationwide problem, and a lot of schools are kind of detouring now. They hire professionals with just the kind of emergency certificates who obtain
Yes.
like don't go through the structured teaching curriculum. And counter argument to that is that it devalues us who actually earn master's degree through structured curriculum and teaching
Sure.
in traditional schools. So what's your stance on that? Like, should we embrace more of that micro credentials with the teaching profession, or should we still stick with a traditional approach to that?
Well, there's also the internship model. where the districts pay the intern, and the intern goes through an induction process and has a master teacher. We have a fairly large internship program at National, because you have to remember we're affiliated with 400 districts across California, and Los Angeles being one of them. And so when you think about the pathways to credentialing, and in Texas they have the alternative certification programs where the districts actually run teacher education programs because there's such a critical need, and Los Angeles, they have a lot of temporary licensures, temporary certificates where they get people into the classroom. But the other side of that is there's also a lot of pathways whereby, for example, in our early childhood education program, if you're an assistant in a classroom and we're trying to create pathways where you come into the early childhood education program and I don't want to say credit, but it's a pathway from being an assistant in the classroom into an early childhood education program, and then get your credential and come back out and work in early childhood education. So yeah, it's a huge problem. I don't work. I used to work in that part of the teacher education. I don't work in that part of the teacher education anymore, but I attend the meetings and I know essentially what's going on as far as some of the key issues. But there's also been a lot of movement on the part of the university through, for example, if you take 4 courses, you only get charged for 3 throughout your credential program. And so it's a built-in kind of grant. It's a built-in kind of way to underwrite some of the challenges that most teachers have as far as financing their credential. Nobody solved the problem across the country. Nobody solved the problem of what to do with student teaching. Because student teaching, you have to leave your job. You have to go into the classroom. And if you're not in an internship program, you have no income for those 4 months. And so that's where the internship program steps in, but it maybe is 12%, 15% of the entire teacher education or credentialing program is underwritten by internships. And so that's part of what I'll talk about in terms of the program I work in. Is we developed a program to capture the students who got to student teaching and couldn't finish their credential.
There's a
And what we
program
did-
in Michigan called Talent Together. It was on a podcast show a few weeks ago. They have solved the problem there. They're the largest apprenticeship program. They're funded by the state, so they get paid to do their internships, to do their teacher, the students.
Well, yeah, and see, in California, the district pays the interns a salary.
Yeah.
And they get their credentials that way. So, and like I said, but that's maybe at best 20% of the credential students. So you still have this other huge portion of credential students. So anyway, we got a little off track in terms of credentials.
Maria, did I answer your question? You did. Someone had a follow. Amanda, take over, Amanda.
Yeah, hi, thank you.
Here, and Shelby has one too. Okay. Hi, Amanda.
Hi,
Amanda
sorry,
that's Shelby.
Yeah, sorry. My husband and I share our account. I'm really fascinated by micro-credentials. Actually, Dr. Bonk, I shared the article you shared with us with my CEOs. I work in the veterinary industry. I'm a credentialed veterinary technician with a specialty in anesthesia, which is a micro-credential additional, what I understand to be equivalent to a micro-credential in my industry, so to speak. But one thing that I'm fascinated by is how do we facilitate, specifically in medicine, and I'm specific to veterinary medicine, but this could extrapolate to human medicine as well, micro credentials to individuals to practice some level of medicine, whether that be a nurse assistant, RN, or veterinary assistant, veterinary technician, DBM, etc., without an accrediting body. Like I just can't see how these micro credentials can fit
Yeah.
into certain industries without a standard degree level.
Sure, sure. And there again, that's kind of the distinction I tried to make at the beginning. As far as anybody can do micro credentials. Amazon does micro credentials. Everybody does Microsoft does micro credential. They've had all these people have their different training program, and they, and people have their badges. That they okay, uh, and that's one side of the street. A lot of people are interested in stackables, micro credentials that result that they have a degree pathway. And so, it's this whole distinction between continuing education units, which have served us well for, a long, long time. But what's the other side of that? The other side of that is upskilling. And I still think that the role of the higher education institution is participate in that upskilling. And they do it through credentialing, they do it through micro credentialing, but it's always associated with accreditation. And then we can get into the weeds a little bit as far as what some of that looks like and what are the possibilities of some of that. And I think it even goes beyond that, because I think it goes into multidisciplinary schooling to prepare for multidisciplinary work. And see, right now, we don't have those degrees. We don't have that hardwired into the old brick and mortar system, whereby you have if you study curriculum, they're pretty standard sort of approaches. You can go to that's where you can go to any university in the country, and you're not going to be surprised. Everybody has within a range of competencies and a range of approaches for a lot of the distributed curriculum. Now, it's germane to what we're talking about, but it's really not part of what I was going to talk about. But on the other end of that is the progress of society, and what will that multidisciplinary work look like? And I think that kind of speaks to your issue. And there is movement with big data, large data sets that look at, for example, they look at Indeed, they look at LinkedIn, they look at all of the job notifications, and they parse those notifications for commonalities of words and uncommonalities of words, and they develop a projection for what future degrees will be needed, because it's a leading indicator. And that's kind of what, as you look across curriculum for multidisciplinary, and you're looking at the veterinary, but you're looking at the ancillary positions and ancillary work. Well, that's a conundrum, because we don't have any design curriculum to prepare for, and you can fill in the blank as far as this sort of, I don't know, anesthesiologist that does specifically with small animals anesthesiology, right, something like that, that there's no program. Right. But we can see from the job advertisements that that's going to be a need in terms of the societal need at some point. Okay, so that's a leading indicator into where the curriculum design can go in terms of stackable micro credentials that can go to a accreditation agency and say, we want to, and I'll even give a concrete example: cloud computing. When you look at the specializations in cloud computing, 10 years ago, they didn't exist. And now we have programs all across the country that are giving people degrees in cloud computing. So that was an innovation that was based on those leading indicator, or the squeaky wheel gets the grease sort of notion. When you get enough students knocking on your door saying, we need master's degree in cloud computing. Okay, well, you're saying the same thing. We need these degrees, we need these certifications, whatever and then it's for the faculty to design those pathways, design those programs, and for the accreditation agencies to say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because part of the accreditation is, it's kind of the need for the program. And so then you go out and do the kind of the field work as far as through Indeed and through these different databases, that this is being identified as a critical need. Here, these big companies are offering big bucks for this type of preparation. Credential institutes of higher education go back and they design that, and the accreditation agency accredits it. Okay, well, that works. As far as the response, it's a slow response, but it's a very good response at this point. It's the other thing is, Kurt, have you talked about it all? What's it called? It's called Skillaby.
No.
Okay, Skillaby is instead of, as you design curriculum, you design certain outcomes. And these outcomes are coded as skills. And such that a student can come in, when you have your catalog in Skillaby, you can come in and you can say, okay, I don't know which degree I want. I don't know exactly what it's called, but I want to develop these sorts of skills. And so you can put those skills into Skillaby, and you can do kind of a backward design or a backward search and end up, okay, well, these programs within the catalog have the most common occurrences of those skills. It's just a big data search. Okay. And that's also, you can do it on the front end. You can say the student, I don't know what I want to study. And they can go, instead of looking at courses and reading course descriptions, they can look at skill sets. And then this is kind of the ed psych part of it, is that you can do a means ends analysis on skills, right?
How do you spell Skillaby? Is it skill ABY or skill
No,
BO?
ABI, Skillaby.
ABI.
But it's ABI, but it's the same sort of thing. When you used to come into the career office or the entrance office of the university, and they'd give you an aptitude test, or they'd give you or the community college system would give you, some sort of aptitude test, and that would help you figure out where you want to light in terms of these different programs. Well, these are just more advanced tools where you go in and you say, no, I really want to do analysis of numerical analysis, something like that. And then they can show you through Skillaby, through those skill sets, all of the skills that are associated with different degrees and different programs, different micro-credentials, different, that way, as far as the...
I'm gonna stop there because I know that we got Wing has a question, but I want to also make a comment that Skillaby might be one place. Credly is another one. Degreed, you mentioned Tom LinkedIn, but there's also a Credible. A Credible. My son and I are currently working on a report of ed tech companies, Alex and I, and he told me that in the corporate world they use a Credible. So, and by the way, as a side note, my son got a job in marketing at U.S. Soccer Foundation, helping underprivileged.
There you go.
So he'll be 2 weeks moving off to U.S. Soccer Foundation. He's been looking for a while. Let's just put it that way. It's a little good news.
Yeah.
But
well,
right now
congratulations to Alex.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
It's nice that we can work on this report, and I'll send it to all the students here of leading ed tech companies. There are many. I think Wing has a question from Singapore. Wing, you want to jump in here?
Okay, Wing, let's hear from you.
And Wing's advisor or supervisor is my former student. So there's a lineage here. She's my granddaughter. No. Wing, are you still here?
Oh, she's on the train now. She says
Oh.
she's questions about the stackable.
Yeah, the limitations. Okay, why don't you take a second to type in your question for him, and we'll see if someone else has a question before we move on. I know you have another
Kurt,
slide.
another one of those programs is called the Pathway Mapper.
Oh, Pathway Mapper. Okay.
Yeah, and it's there again. These are all tools for people to given the different databases that they can access, as far as if it's Skillaby or if it's what pathway they're mapping. But looking at it as a curriculum problem, it's that. And we'll get to as soon as we get to customized curriculum, we'll get to the unit of analysis and shows how the permutations of the curriculum explode, both in terms of the management of it, but also in terms of the possibilities for the outcomes, for the degrees that can be associated with it.
The Wing's written down here. It is often limited to specific institution, not across one another.
Well, and there again, that's the accreditation agencies.
Yeah.
Right. And so actually, in some ways, that's a good problem, because you want your institution to have the only pathway to that degree, and so all the students come to your institution. But
yeah. Anyone else have a question before I put up the next slide? Anyone want to jump in? Raise your hand now. Arpita, you put your camera on, so I assume, and I know you sent me an email earlier looking forward to this session, I know. So go ahead, Arpita.
Hi. My question is, so in this AI world, we are seeing the layoffs. So many people are losing their job, and organizations are rapidly, taking AI, and that's kind of replacing
yes,
certain jobs. So I'm just thinking about, where do you see, like, micro credentials? Is it emerging as a standalone qualifications that people can take, that is like capable of demonstrating job ready competencies, or do you think that
sure.
it's a complementary pathway to traditional degrees that we usually take?
Okay, in terms of the what's happening on campus where I work, is that the first line of interest is the integration of AI skill sets into the existing curriculum. Okay, so it could be rewriting assignments, it could be introducing new concepts and linking them to the concepts that are already being taught. That's number one. The second one is that, just what we were talking about, is that and I agree with you that some jobs are going to be lost there and they won't ever come back. But the corollary to that is that some jobs will be created. And so if you're forward looking, you should be looking at what skill sets are those jobs requiring. And as a curriculum modification, then you modify your curriculum to have those outcomes and demonstrate those competencies on the fly. Otherwise, you're going to end up having a host of programs that nobody wants to participate in. And we've already seen that as far as the 20th century curriculum versus the 21st century curriculum.
And I think what we've got happening here is short term, might not notice much change. We're not. I mean, we got micro credentials that have existed for more than 10 years. All of a sudden, it's like ebooks were promised for decades. And all of a sudden, 2009, everyone's having ebooks. There's a tipping point, as Malcolm Gladwell points out. We don't know when that tipping point is going to come for micro-credentials, but it's getting closer as we see increasingly media attention, politician attention, educator attention placed on, and the society value system, as well as the need for the micro-credentials, because society's changed so fast. The only way we can truly adapt in a quick fashion is going to be through micro-credentials, not through normal degree programs. It's going to be, we already see it happening with masters. Then we saw it happening with certificates. Now we're going to see it happening with micro-credentials, or even shorter bits. We see TikTok, right? Watching TikTok videos. All this is becoming micro school, micro learning, micro credentials. It's all moving. So learning on demand, just in time. All this is finally, we've been promised this for decades. It's finally starting to arrive. And I think, Arpita, the flip side of the answer to your question is, yes, it's going to transform things. I don't think there's any doubt. We don't know when it's going to actually click. So we have to be ready, as Tom points out. We have to figure out what the skill sets are going to be and find our way into those niche areas, gain those skills and competencies along the way. I have one I mentioned in the discussion thread last night in the other class. One student, she got a PhD, PhD here. She went back for MBA in learning analytics. She just finished it, right?
Sure.
So, she knew the skill set wasn't going to be sufficient for her in her current, what job she wants to have. And she went back and did it. Not everyone has the ability to do what she did, but Tom, you're probably going to comment on 3 or 4 things there.
Well, but actually, it's a good intermediate step is the customized curriculum. And we could talk about that a little bit right now. Right. And so even if you want me to call up your other slide? Yeah, pull up the customized curriculum slide. And so even if you don't change anything else as far as the accreditation, if you just keep your programs accredited the way that they're existed, so the accreditation is the same way it's structured. It's structured the same way. If you start to break apart and I call it slice and dice the curriculum. Wait a minute, form of micro-credentials. This is what okay, I can address that in a minute. I call slicing and dicing the curriculum. And so what we're looking at is, and this is very simplistic, but if you look at a 3 credit hour course, and so in our model of curriculum, we always had CLOs, course learning outcomes. And for the most part, across the college, those involved 4 course learning outcomes. Now, it's also because National University uses a 4-week model, and it was developed out of the 4-week model, and so the 4 CLOs per course, and that maps nice. And so, in some ways, our unit of analysis, it wasn't that much of a reach for us to begin to think about a unit of analysis as a CLO or a module. And so this gets you down into the realm of micro-credentials, because the first question of a micro-credential is the same way as the first question of any curriculum. What is it you're going to, is the curriculum, and how are you going to slice and dice it? What's the unit of analysis? And so for a lot of institutions, especially with 3 credit courses, if you can think about it in terms of a 0.75 credit hour. And the other thing is that, okay, when you think about that and you think about the chunking of knowledge and the organization of knowledge and some of the stuff that you read about micro-credentials as far as the parameters of what they should entail or how much you should put into a badge or all of those sorts of things. And I'm not an authority on this, but as you think about things like that and the way that people are going, there has to be some sort of limitation, some of demarcations as far as what is the unit of analysis of a unit or a module in a micro-credential. And so that's one of the issues as far as, and then how is that related to learning outcomes? And so we try, you do it all the time with in ed psych, you do things like chunking information, and it's based on cognitive models of learners and how much they can uh, uh, digest at one sitting, or there's all sorts of metrics that psychologists use in terms of designing curriculum. Well, that's all part of this in terms of a micro-credential. How much is enough for a micro credential? And so I'm not, like I said, I'm not an expert on that, but it's one of the considerations. And so it's kind of a useful fiction to say, okay, let's just think about it in terms of 0.75 credit hours. It works in terms of you have extant courses, and I don't know in your different programs, in the College of Education, in the program that I designed, there's 60 courses. So you have 240 different learning units in modules. And this is what I'm talking about in terms of the permutations and all the combinations and stuff. As you start thinking about this as a curriculum problem, it can get real big real fast and unmanageable. And so that's part of the process, is figuring out, once you start slicing and dicing, and once you start thinking about micro-credentials and stacking those on top of one another, then the tools like Skillaby and some of those other tools come into play, because these are big data sets. And you need big data processing to help you along in terms of identifying what are the pathways and what are the potential and how do they all link together. And that gets real big real fast, because even with the courses that I have in the program that I designed, even if it's 60 courses, even if you don't split up the courses, and you think about degree qualification program profiles across 60 courses, think of all the permutations of those 60 courses that you can have students taking to get the same degree.
Millions.
See, millions. I mean, it literally is astronomical in terms of using the kind of the 20th century model of degree qualification profiles. What faculty members are going to sit down and figure out and do all the skill analysis for all of those different permutations of how you can have pathways through even 50 courses.
Yeah, that's
So,
why AI
yeah,
is
go
coming.
ahead.
AI is
Yeah, and
coming.
that's
You need to go
that's
to
what.
Amita. We only have a little bit of time with you left, Tom, but we'll probably go 15 minutes past before we go to Paula. So we got 20
Okay.
minutes left, if that's okay
Yeah,
with you.
okay, so just let me just finish this, and then that's the real point that I want to make. And so now, if you remember, there's the structured curriculum design, is that you have faculty members and curriculum committees that create these specializations, these emphases that they go through, and they manage the whole thing, and they kind of field test all of these different pathways through the curriculum. But as soon as you open up the curriculum and you say, even with 50 courses, those models become archaic. And you won't get a faculty member or a faculty committee to go through all of those courses and create out all of those pathways. Kurt just says it. It's an archaic model. You can't do it. So what I think is come on the horizon is that you create a assessment system where the learner can self-design, customize their own pathway, and they're responsible for aligning those learning experiences to a set of standards, and they're responsible for the demonstration of competence of those standards. And the standards can be like a program learning outcomes. At the end of this, because that's what, remember, that's what the accreditation says. At the end of this pathway, the learners will demonstrate competence of what they're supposed to have to know and what they're supposed to be able to do.
Yeah,
And
so
you put the onus on the learner to say, okay, you can design your pathway, whichever pathway through this that you want, but the onus is on you to collect. In our system, we call them learning artifacts. You know, the just whatever the assignment is, or the, you know, the model of assessment, or the demonstrate, or the lesson plan, or whatever those are, and link them to the standards, and then you demonstrate the competence. And the accreditation agency has no problem with this. That demonstration of competence is viable.
yeah. So Tom, on Friday, Jared Janio over in the community college in California, he runs the coaches network, and they do slow talks on Friday called Student Learning Outcomes. So we participated in that last Friday. Some of the students here attended that. Jarek was a guest in this class in week 2, talking. He's more comes from a behavioral approach, but very student learning outcomes model. He has a network of community colleges across California and throughout the United States that talk about this very topic. I was going to go to Amita next, and Paul has arrived. So Paul, we'll go to you in about 7:15, about 15 minutes beyond. We'll start about 15 minutes late. I was going to go to Amanda, but Amanda has 2 questions, so I'm going to go back to Amanda. Why don't you go ahead and raise your point, Amanda, and then we'll go to Amita.
Oh, I was just, wrapping my mind around this micro-credentialing and perhaps how long it's been in existence without perhaps that label, wondering if what high schools, at least here in the US, are doing with accreditation, with certificate programs where you can graduate from high school and also be now a certified mechanic or plumber or whatever the process is for the trade, traditional trades.
Yeah.
Would that be a micro credential example to some degree?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And the trades have been at it for ages. The difference being in terms of the thinking skills and the skill levels, and you think about when you think about the trades, it's also the certificates. They're certified, the trades certify themselves in terms of, you want your electrician to know something about circuitry and something, those sorts of things. And so, that's a great example of micro-credentialing.
Yeah, and
licensing.
I think Jeff Hitchcock, coming from the transportation industry up in the Boston area, would probably want to comment on that, but I want to read Wing's comment from the train. She says, more flexibility in terms of more options for learners will be great to learners who are not sure what direction they're going to go on. We're not sure of their exploration stage that they're at, not sure exactly where they're going. So
Sure. Okay, Kurt, let me just comment one more thing in terms of the program that I oversee. And so it only has 2 required courses out of the 10 courses. In the first course, the learners spend the first 2 weeks in designing their own plan of study. And the plan of study is signed off by an instructor as being viable. And what that means is the instructor has gone through the different coursework and read the course descriptions and see how it's aligned and how it's located in terms of introductory, developed, or mastered of the different standards, which are the program learning outcomes. And any modification to that requires another sign off. And so when the students have that plan of study document, they can go out and have those courses or those learning experience scheduled. If they want to modify that, they have to take it either to the academic program coordinator or the instructor, somebody that has the authority to sign off on the new plan of study. And so it's not just, free for all. You can take whatever courses you want, because there are pathways through the curriculum that don't meet the standards, that don't meet the program learning outcomes. And so there's there has to be air trapping involved in that assessment system. And that air trapping is covered in that first course. The first course that is required, everybody has to take it, and everybody has to do a plan of study.
Mm. So again, this course on learning environment design really should have more focus and attention on these topics. We haven't in the past. I've taught this course 3 times. We've not talked about the course pathways of students. We're more talked about the design and delivery of a particular course, not the entire program. And so this is enlightening maybe for some of the people who are sitting in here. Before Omida, Jeff, did you have a comment about trades and the micro credentials? Did you want to jump in? You were the first one here tonight, and we haven't heard from you.
That's right.
Thank you, Monk. Yeah, I would. So, like, when I think of micro credentials and the trades, I almost think of sort of upskilling from within, like when new tools and new technologies within plumbing or electrical or maintenance and repair of equipment come about. And if you're not staying ahead of those sorts of things, it's sort of like probably the easiest example that I could give is for like a carpenter, you know, when like the nail gun came out, you know?
Sure.
So, and it was like anybody who fought that technology, you know, kind of got left behind. So that's sort of what I think about when I hear the term micro credentials as it applies to the trades.
Sure. Well, and also we haven't really addressed this issue, is that what to do about post-degree upskilling. You know, and that's where we haven't really talked about the stackables, and this kind of relates to also to the veterinary science person, that what does it mean, and what are the rewards for upskilling and in kind of an adjacent curriculum, or what do some of those designs look like? And that's a whole nother realm. We're still right within that structured curriculum model and innovations within that. We haven't even talked about what that means as far as when now like I said, Microsoft or Amazon or some of the companies are addressing that. They're saying, we don't care if you have a degree. We just want your Google is the kind of the poster child for this. We don't care if you have a degree. What we want to say is your skill set and what, you know. And Kurt, I'm thinking about the guy that did the 250 MOOCs.
Yeah. Oh, he's now 700. He's up to 700 or something like that. And he did get a job. He moved to Canada and got a job. Him and his wife took over 100. He's now taking like 600 or 700, you know. Yeah.
But anyway, his skill set is there's no way to chart his skill set on a normal, you know, degree pattern and pathway, that sort of thing. But yet we have to, at some point, we're going to have to accommodate people like that.
Yeah. So he's self-directing his learning. Jim Nagaya from Nigeria, and he's in an advanced graduate program in Edmonton at the University of what's that called? Alberta. And he's in advanced levels of computer science, of course. I mean, he wrote to me, and I didn't understand anything he had to say, but he's at such an advanced level. It's just like, oh my God. Anyhow, I want to point out, talking about post-career credentialing, I'm going to have to do a post-tenure review because the state of Indiana has decided all faculty have been around a while. We're going to have a post-tenure review. So if students don't like me in this class, now is the time to send in a bad performance report on me because they're going to review me. And so if you want me to be fired, now is the time to submit. Okay.
But Kurt, the operative question in those post-tenure reviews is that whom shall examine me?
yeah, really. So Amita, who's my former student, she's been sitting in my classes for about, I think it's almost 15 years now, Amita. She got her degree here a few years ago. Amita, would you want to ask your question? You had 2 of them.
Sure. Hello.
Hello.
I'm interested in partnerships between universities and learning and development organizations. Um, I mean, you noted that universities cannot offer all kind of credentials, so there might be some partnerships, and I believe that those exist.
Okay,
So
yes.
I'm interested in some example models and options.
Okay. Now, what the other part of the program that I designed addresses that issue. And I'll harken back to the accreditation agencies. The accreditation agencies allow 25% of any program to come from prior learning experience. And prior learning experience is, by definition, learning experiences that occur outside of higher education. And so you have these other agencies that do, and think about, Kurt, think about MOOCs, think about military training, think about county offices of education, think about anything, professional development, even within the company or whatever. All of those professional development experiences are prior learning experiences. And so then the program I designed is that we use that same standard of alignment and competence demonstration assessment system to look at the prior learning experiences, and we award credit in the program accordingly. And so that's one way to bridge that learning experiences that occur in other contexts and other agencies and other things, and to get people to have degree credit, university credit, without a cost associated with it. So you take your degree, 25% of the tuition can come from learning experiences that you've already had. Not a bad deal.
Hmm.
Yeah, 25%. And that's all of the accreditation agencies.
We've got 5 minutes
Thank
left with you. Romita, does that help answer your question there?
Yes, a lot. Yes,
Yep.
thank you.
Romita is from
Yeah. You see, and then she can go tell all her friends, you know, you can get 25%. But the downside is that not a lot of universities are doing that.
Mm.
Now, Kurt, you know this from Arizona, from Jim in Arizona State. Arizona State has a freshman academy that's free to the freshmen. So 25% of their undergraduate degree is tuition free. And they have to pay for the, you know, the last whatever it is, you know, 100 hours or however many credit hours is the degree. So you're seeing different formulations of this. And Kurt, we see this in terms of the different MOOC models too. As far as, you know, if you take this MOOC, if you study this, and maybe there's an exam and you pass that exam, you get so many university credits for having had those learning experiences. Because there again, that's one of the consistencies across accreditation agencies, is that up to 25% of a program can come from learning that has occurred outside of higher education.
So ASU is one of the most innovative universities on the planet today. They have Ed Plus is what it's called. That had offered a freshman academy. They have many other things going on there. And my podcast partner, Punya Mishra, is from there. Every week we talk about Arizona State and have guests from there. They've got a high school online. They've got all sorts of things. Another place to think about is Saylor Academy. Saylor Academy is created by Michael Saylor, who made a lot of money in micro finance at like billions of dollars, and he's created free classes in DC for people. So that's another place to look for free education. And my friend, you know her, Sheila Jaganathan from the World Bank, is now working for Saylor Academy. And Tom, you know Sheila, and so yeah, I'll be putting them in my report that I'm currently working on. I have a final question for you, Tom, but does anyone else want to jump in with a question before I ask my final question? Anybody hasn't had a chance, please, now's the time. So Tom, this week in
Yeah.
this class, they're going to do readings on the psychology of online instruction. You have been an instructor teaching online since the early years of online learning. So have I. You've also been a creator of online learning experiences, created a whole curriculum for 6,000 teacher education students. What's your
Right.
hat on,
Right.
either as an instructor or a developer in the online learning space, either in the
Heard of-
delivery or the creation of content? What are
Yeah.
some best practices, tips, guidelines in terms of the psychology of learning? What should people keep in mind when they're creating or delivering online content, given your rich history? You know more than
Right.
most people
Right.
in this field. What kinds of wisdom can you impart to my class here before you leave tonight? Yeah,
Well,
put you on the spot here.
actually, it goes back farther than that. My first job out of college was as an editor, and I edited using the Keller plan. Now,
Oh, yeah.
Kurt, do you remember the
Yes,
Keller
Mastery
plan?
Learning, Keller plan, sure.
Mastery Learning.
Yeah.
And it was editing, and the professors brought in these bound copies of lecture notes, and I had to rewrite the lecture notes and transfer them into these modules, Keller modules for Mastery Learning. And so um, I guess my counseled advice is don't use that model because the old direct instruction lecture model is far afield from what we have learning expectations and learning designs for today. And so and the other advice is that pay attention to classes like this, because the foundations of it is kind of the capacities of learners and the dynamics of learners and where that gets addressed and how it gets addressed in terms of design. And so I hate to say this, but a lot of good teaching comes from good design. And so in some ways, the national model is because we have so many adjunct faculty. In some ways, it's air trapping and ensuring that the instructional resources are so robust that even if the faculty has missteps, the instructional resources will set the learners straight. And we haven't talked about the other half of my world, and that is the design and implementation of an assessment, a program assessment system, program evaluation system. And so we've all known this, and we're going to talk about D2L a little bit, but we've always known that all of these eCollege or Brightspace and all of these LMSs have back doors, and those back doors have report generators. And so we used different linkages of different systems together to look at student outcomes and student performances across different tasks. And in our assessment system, we classify some assignments as signature assignments, and those get examined across all the students that take those for a year. And it's a good, as far as curriculum design, it's a good system because it's modular. It's if the rubric has 5 different components, each one of the components gets assessed. And so if as a curriculum designer, as an instructional designer, I can see if one component of that rubric, if the students aren't doing well on it. And that leads me to say, I need to go in and look at the instructional resources for that one component of the rubric and maybe make them more robust and revise them and that sort of thing. So the other side of that is that in any system, you have to know your faculty. You have to know the capacities of your faculty, and you have to know who is designing the courses they're expected to teach. Because if there's a mismatch in terms of the competence of the faculty and the design of the course, you're not going to have good student experiences.
I'll stop
And
you
so
there. That's an excellent point. Also, not just the resource being revamped, the activities being revamped, right?
yeah,
So
yeah, whatever part of the curriculum is causing the misstep can be identified and addressed, and that's on an annual basis. So there again, it's different model because you do that on a weekly basis.
sure.
You know,
Every-
if people aren't getting it, you go back and revisit and approach it a different way. Well,
yeah, well, it's very true. This week, I saw many questions last week on micro-credentials. I knew you were coming. I said, can you talk about micro-credentials more? Because they're very interested. Plus, I invited Paula in, who's our next. Yeah, so it's a good
yeah,
segue.
yeah.
Before we go to Paula, Arpita put her camera on for a reason. Did you want to make a comment, Arpita?
No, I think thank you for all the insightful thoughts. It was very, very insightful. I have like made several notes. So thank you.
And Arpita
Well, I
actually knows
appreciate that.
Paula.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And also to Paula, I've known Paula for a few years. We were at the ACT Design and Development Competition. We were the finalists, and Paula's team won. So the presentation. And I was also fortunate to meet her students this summer virtually. So I'm really excited to see her.
So you met Paula's students at the University of West Indies.
Yes.
So before
Thank you.
Tom heads out, anyone want to put 3 words out? How this?
Well, the
this
other thing
past
is
hour-
they have my contact information. They can
yeah.
reach out. You know,
They can
I'm
reach out.
pretty
So
sociable guy.
we can get a wave goodbye. I'll capture a wave if anyone wants to put their cameras on. I'll wave goodbye. I'll put us on a 1, 1.5, 2, and a 3.
Thank you for
Wave.
coming.
Okay. Thanks,
Yayo.
everyone. Thanks,
Have a
Tom,
good night.
for coming in
Yep.
tonight. And I am going to stop the recording for this section here. Again, Tom Reynolds from National University, not only in California, but around the country, currently in Madison, Wisconsin. Thanks for coming, Tom. Part 1, week 11, R622.